Red light flooded the bridge before I even understood what was happening. Alarms screamed through the hull, and my hands were already moving across the console before my mind caught up. 5 ships had dropped out of warp around us. Not 1, not 2, 5. They surrounded my vessel like wolves closing on a lone deer, and for a moment, the only sound on the bridge was the low hum of our engines and the frantic beeping of proximity sensors. "Captain Ellison, multiple contacts, weapons hot," said Priya, my tactical officer, her voice tight but controlled. She had been with me for 6 years. I trusted her more than I trusted my own instincts sometimes. "I see them," I said, keeping my voice level. Inside, my heart was pounding, but panic never helped anyone survive a fight. I learned that a long time ago. A channel opened before I could even respond. A voice, distorted and cold, filled the bridge. "Human vessel, you are surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will not be tolerated." I almost laughed. Almost. These creatures, whoever they were, clearly did not know who they were dealing with. They assumed we were like every other species they had cornered before. Weak, compliant, ready to fold the moment the odds turned against us. They were wrong. "This is Captain Ellison of the transport vessel Horizon," I said, keeping my tone calm, almost polite. "We are a civilian ship on a supply run. We mean you no harm." "Then surrender," the voice repeated, sharper this time. I looked at Priya. She looked back at me, waiting for the order. My co-pilot, Daniel, sat frozen for half a second before his training kicked in and his fingers began flying across the navigation controls, already plotting evasive patterns without me needing to ask. "Not going to happen," I said, more to myself than to them. I cut the channel. The bridge fell silent, except for the sound of systems powering up, shields hardened, weapons array charged. Every light on my console shifted from standby amber to active red. "They're moving into formation," Priya said. "They think we're going to sit still." "Let them think that," I said. Here is something most people outside the fleet never understood. Ships like the Horizon were never truly civilian. Not really. After the early conflicts decades ago, every long-range vessel built for deep space travel carried defenses meant to handle exactly this kind of situation. We were not a warship, but we were not defenseless either. And more importantly, we were trained. Every single person on this ship had been through combat drills more times than I could count. It was not something we advertised. It was something we simply knew how to do when the moment came. The 5 alien ships began closing in, slow and confident, spreading out to box us in from every angle. Their formation was wide, arrogant, built on the assumption that we had nowhere to run and no will to fight. "They're broadcasting again," Priya said. "Ignore it." Daniel's hands moved fast. "Captain, I have a gap. If we reverse thrust and roll to their blind side, we can put 2 of their ships in each other's firing line." "Do it." The Horizon lurched as Daniel executed the maneuver, a sharp burst of speed that threw my stomach against my ribs. The stars outside the viewport blurred as we rolled hard to starboard, slipping beneath the closest enemy vessel, just as its weapons powered up. A shot meant for us instead grazed past our hull and struck one of their own ships, just barely, enough to spark a small flare of light along its shields. "Confusion in their formation," Priya said, a note of satisfaction creeping into her voice. "Good. Keep it that way." I opened fire. Our forward cannons released a controlled burst, precise, not wasteful, aimed directly at the closest ship's engine cluster. It was not the biggest weapon in the galaxy, but it did not need to be. It needed to be accurate, and it was. The enemy ship shuddered, its engines flickering, losing speed as it drifted out of formation. "One down from the fight," Priya reported. "Not destroyed, but disabled." "That's fine. We don't need to destroy them. We need them to understand this was a mistake." The remaining 4 ships adjusted, clearly surprised. Their movements became less coordinated, more reactive. They had planned for a surrender. They had not planned for resistance, and now their formation was breaking apart as confusion spread through their ranks. Daniel guided us through another tight maneuver, weaving between two of the alien ships as their weapons fired wildly, missing us by a narrow margin. The horizon shook with each near impact, but our shields held. "Their coordination is falling apart," Priya said. "They're not used to a target that fights back." "Most things they've hunted probably didn't," I said. Another wave of enemy fire lit up the space around us, but Daniel was already pulling us into a spiral, using the debris from the disabled ship as cover. It was reckless, but it worked. We slipped past their firing lines and came up behind one of the smaller vessels. "Target their weapons array," I ordered. Priya's fingers moved with practiced precision. Our secondary cannons unleashed a focused strike directly into the enemy ship's forward weapons system. Sparks burst along its hull, and its cannons went dark. "Weapons offline on target 2, she confirmed. 2 ships down, 3 remaining. The voice returned over comms, no longer calm, no longer confident. "Human vessel, cease your attack immediately." I almost smiled. "You started this." The remaining 3 ships regrouped, moving into a tighter formation, clearly trying to overwhelm us with concentrated fire instead of spreading out. It was a smarter move, but it came too late. "They're converging," Daniel warned. "If they all fire at once, our shields might not hold." "Then we don't give them the chance," I said. "Full burn, straight through the gap between ship 3 and 4. Daniel's eyes widened slightly, but he did not hesitate. The horizon surged forward, engines roaring, aiming directly for the narrow space between 2 of the remaining ships. It was a dangerous move. If we misjudged the distance even slightly, we would collide. We did not misjudge it. The horizon shot through the gap like a blade through fabric, our hull passing so close to both enemy ships that our proximity alarms screamed in protest. As we passed, Priya fired both port and starboard cannons simultaneously, striking glancing blows against both vessels as we flew between them. Sparks and debris scattered behind us as we cleared the gap, leaving both ships damaged and disoriented. "That was insane," Daniel said, his voice caught somewhere between fear and exhilaration. "That was necessary," I said. Only 2 ships remained combat-capable now, and their confidence was clearly gone. Their movements became hesitant, uncertain, nothing like the calculated predator behavior from when this encounter began. "They're pulling back," Priya said. "Not yet," I said. "Target the lead ship's propulsion system. Let's make sure they remember this." One final strike from our forward cannons tore through the lead ship's rear thrusters, crippling its ability to maneuver. It drifted, powerless, alongside its damaged companions. Silence fell across the bridge as the remaining ships stopped firing altogether. The channel opened once more, and this time, the voice sounded different, smaller, uncertain. "Human vessel, state your terms." I leaned back slightly in my seat, allowing myself one slow breath before responding. "Power down your weapons," I said. "Do not follow us. And the next time you consider ambushing a ship, remember this conversation." There was a long pause before the voice responded. "Understood." I closed the channel and looked around the bridge. Priya was breathing heavily, her hands finally relaxing from the console. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead, still processing the maneuver he had just pulled off. "Everyone all right?" I asked. "Never better," Priya said, though her voice shook slightly with the aftermath of adrenaline. "Remind me never to underestimate your flying," I told Daniel. He gave a tired laugh. "Remind me never to volunteer for another supply run." I allowed myself a small smile as I checked our systems. Shields damaged but stable. Weapons functional. No casualties. We had gone from being ambushed by 5 ships to walking away with only scars on our hull and a story none of us would forget. As the horizon slowly moved away from the drifting enemy ships, I thought about what had just happened. Those creatures had approached us with total confidence, certain that a single human vessel would fold the moment the odds turned against it. They had seen numbers, seen the size difference between their fleet and our ship, and assumed the outcome before the fight even began. They forgot to account for the one thing that mattered most. It was never about the size of the ship or the number of vessels surrounding us. It was about what happens when you corner people who are trained to survive and refuse to give up. I keyed the comms to send a brief report back to Fleet Command, describing the encounter in simple terms. An ambush attempted, an ambush repelled. No losses on our side. As I finished the report, Priya turned to me, still catching her breath. "Do you think they'll try this again? With another ship?" I looked out at the stars ahead of us, calm and endless, as if nothing had happened at all. "Maybe," I said, "but if they do, I hope they remember what happened here today." The horizon continued forward, leaving behind 5 ships that had expected an easy victory and instead found something they never anticipated. Not surrender, not fear. Just quiet, steady resistance, backed by the simple truth that humans do not break as easily as some expect. And somewhere out there, among the stars, that lesson would travel far beyond this single encounter, carried by whatever remained of a fleet that had underestimated exactly the wrong ship on exactly the wrong day.